Welcome to episode 7 of the Mish podcast. My name is Dan.
And my name is Marlene.
We are just a few days late from recording this episode. We had gone really consistently for like almost a month. The last 3 episodes were back to back to back. But because of the holidays, and it's right now, today is what, the 27th? 2 days after Christmas?
Correct.
We are, we took a couple days off, took it easy a little bit. But for those of you that are listening to this, close-ish to 2018, if you're still in 2018, Merry Christmas, and hopefully you guys are going to have a good New Year's. And if you already had New Year's, hopefully you're recovering well from whatever you did.
And you're in the future.
And I'm talking to you in the future, from the past to the future.
Okay, Marty.
In the year 2019. Okay. This episode is getting derailed really quickly. But I want to thank you guys for listening, subscribing, downloading, however you're listening to us, in the car, in your headphones. If you're listening to this at work, don't let your boss know that you're doing this, because this is probably not officially sanctioned by your workplace. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's PG. No, it's G, right? This is totally.
When was the last time you were in the office, Dan? Do you know any office rules?
I don't know. I mean, do they still have water coolers? Is that still a thing? Well, however things are done in the office today, maybe podcasts are okay. And if you are listening in the office, we appreciate that as well. Special thanks go out to our patrons on Patreon. Those guys are really helping us to get this going and continuing. I don't know how. I wouldn't say this podcast is necessarily successful, quote unquote, yet, but I feel like we're doing pretty good. We're getting some good feedback from everybody out there who's listened to this, and we're trying to put out good content. And these are all topics so far. It's like a combination of questions that we get asked a lot, and also sort of relevant things that are happening to us right now, which right now we're in Europe, and being December 2018, we got here in September. We are planning to be in Europe for at least 1 to 2 years. So, this is all like a very new transition time for us. And starting a new podcast, doing a lot of YouTube uploads and getting back on the blog and posting there. This is all very exciting things for us. So anyways, we want to thank you guys for subscribing to all of those things that I just mentioned. But today's topic is one that was requested on Twitter. A couple episodes ago, I mentioned that if you wanted to ask us any questions about, what you might be interested in, or maybe a topic you want us to cover, that you can go on Twitter and ask a question using the hashtag, what was it? Mish podcast?
I think so.
Yeah, so Twitter hashtag Mish podcast. You can ask us questions there, and we will try to answer it in this medium. And has there been more?
Yeah, just one. Katie.
Okay.
Gum by Goo she asked us a question. What was her question, Dan?
Is that the one? Is that the post where she has the question? You want to read it?
Yeah. Loving your pod, or enjoying your pod. Love the backstory in this one, and checked out your jaunt through Maine on the site today. You mentioned in passing the kids getting older, and I'd love to hear more sometime about school, how it's evolved, how you think it could change in the future. Hashtag Mish podcast.
Yeah, so, we thought we'd tackle that one. And that's actually a really good topic that we think can basically be its own episode. And we get asked this a lot. The more specific question is about homeschooling. So we'll cover some homeschooling, but I think the overarching topic for this episode will be more about just having kids on the road and having kids through various ages. And since we've been doing this for a relatively long time, just about 10 years, our kids have grown up on the road. So we've had them through all of their ages from, just a few months old all the way to our oldest, Ava, who's about to be 12.
Yeah, in a few days.
Yeah, in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Just about 2 weeks. So we'll go through things that we do for homeschooling. We'll go through, things that work well for us, things that maybe don't work so well, and how life is different on the road with kids versus not. Marlene's got this sort of outline that we'll kind of follow. So we can just kind of riff.
Okay.
From top to bottom.
So I think we should talk about why we choose to live small and why we travel first. Is that okay?
Yeah, that seems like a logical place to start.
Okay, it's more general. So when we started traveling, we thought, when we first bought we had a little tab, and we're like, we want to show Ava the world. We want to let's just start with our backyard and go from there. And that was like end of 2007, beginning of 2008, sort of, because Ava was born January 2008. January 2007. So we started looking at travel trailers and RVs and vans and stuff like that. The first thing we bought is actually our 2007 GMC Savannah van. And that was bought, I remember very distinctly when we bought it, because it was in Oxnard, California at the GMC dealership. And it was Thanksgiving Day, 2017. You have a good memory. I don't remember any of this.
Well, because I remember being there Thanksgiving Day and be like, he doesn't want to be here. He wants to make a deal on this van. And I have been looking for a van for a long time. I've sort of always been a van guy. I've had Volkswagen buses in the past, and ever since Marlene's known me, we've looked at vans to buy. We've looked at least 4 vans to buy. I bought with you one of them. Well, not including the GMC, so I guess 2, and then now the Sprinter, so 3. But the first thing we got was the van, and we decided that we were going to start out with a little tap trailer. And Ava was less than a year old.
Because we bought it right after our dog Rudy died. So Ava was exactly 9 months old. So probably just before she was 10 months old, we had a trailer.
Right. Did we buy the trailer first? Actually, no, I'm trying to think about it.
No, I think that
we bought the van first, but the van was off getting modified when we first got the tab. So then our first trip in the tab was actually using the SUV you used to have. Right, because we went to El Capitan State Beach in Santa Barbara.
For my birthday in December. I remember doing that for my birthday.
Yeah, so we had just bought the van like a month ago. Mm-hmm. That's right, because I remember driving that van to Phoenix to pick up the tab, because we bought it used from an older couple in Sun City, Arizona, which is now we know the area much better. It's like a full-on retirement community. And I remember sleeping in an empty van, an empty cargo van at a Holiday Inn or something. Total stealth urban camping.
Before you knew what it was.
Before I knew it was a thing.
You were just cheap and broke.
Yeah. Because it was a cargo van. It didn't have anything in it. That's why we had to go get it, modified. I wasn't a van builder then. So I had paid El Capitan Vans out of Orange County. Yeah, Orange County, California, to get it. Seats put in, a convertible bed in the back, a second AC unit in the back, windows, all that stuff. So our first trip was in the tab, and then Ava got sick. That's when we found out. We drove to Tucson, and we spent like a week in Tucson. And the plan was just to spend a week and kind of check it out. We went to Santa Catalina State Park.
Oh, yeah.
In Tucson, which back then was sort of on the outskirts of town.
Yeah, nothing around it. No Walmart.
They had just started building a big shopping center across the entrance, and there was like maybe a Home Depot there. But besides that, we thought it was, wow, this is great. We're kind of remote, but if you know Catalina State Park now, it's in the middle of the burbs. Still beautiful, but
it was our first trip, so we felt super, like, first long trip. We're so adventurous. Look at us on the outskirts of town.
And it was cold. It was December in Tucson, which is, for us Californians, that's cold. But that's where you want to be. Now we know in December, southern Arizona is where you want to be. So it was nice. The air was brisk. So I wouldn't say it was cold. It was just brisk. But Ava had a respiratory virus and was having a hard time breathing, so she ended up being hospitalized
for 8 days.
And in the hospital room, there was like a seat that you slept in next to her bed. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, we had the van and the tab with us, so I slept in the parking lot. And that was actually one of the first times I said, oh, you know what, you can sleep in parking lots. Like hospitals, like I didn't get bothered by anybody the whole time. So I started thinking hospitals might be a good place to kind of stay for free. But, we never ended up staying at hospitals. But at the time I remember thinking, well, if you're visiting a relative or have a relative in the hospital and you're staying around to kind of be near them, it'd be kind of a jerk move for them to kick you out. So how do they know I'm not visiting somebody? But anyways, if you get kicked out of a hospital, don't blame me. We've not stayed in one since. But, that was, for some people, that might have been a deterrent to think, oh, this is bad. Like, let's not do it again. But we actually, besides the hospitalization, we felt really free to have sort of a place to stay with us wherever we went. Because had we been staying at a hotel or something, having to stay an extra 8 days would have been very expensive.
Crazy. Because already the hospital stay cost us a lot.
Right.
On top of, like, us staying.
Yeah. But that was our first foray in camping in trailers. But, we, from that point on, we went on to get the Airstream. And, some of you guys know the story. Maybe we covered this topic a little bit. But, this is more about just having kids. And, having kids traveling, it's unpredictable, and even from when we had kids, when they were younger until they're now, it's totally different. And we see it with our friends that, who started out without kids and have had kids since they've been on the road. We're seeing them having newborns and really young kids on the road. And it's kind of reminiscent for us to think back, oh, that's how we used to travel. But it actually changes a lot over the years. At the beginning, we couldn't drive very far. We probably did like half-hour drives at a time. Then we have to pull over. If your baby is not eating solid foods or still breastfeeding or drinking out of a bottle, it's difficult to drive and feed. And, we do a lot of pullover. So back in the day, we would cover like 100 miles a day, which is
long day.
Which made for a long day. So if you only drive a half hour at a time, that's like half an hour, you get 30, 40 miles and you stop for half an hour. You drive another half an hour, you stop for, so it takes you 3 hours to go, 100 miles. And if you get a late start, you eat lunch, you drive 3 hours. By the time you're done, it's like 4 o'clock. But that's just how it went. That's sort of before we started homeschooling. And we actually went on travel for about 5 years. And during that time, our kids were still young, so we didn't even have to think about homeschooling yet. We were just out having fun, exploring. And it was not necessarily at the beginning of our travels to say that, okay, we're gonna homeschool the kids. We're gonna go out and see all the states or see all the national parks or go to every country and stuff like that. It just kind of progressively became a thing that we did. In fact, for the first, I don't know, I want to say 3 or 4 years, we didn't even go to a national park as necessarily. I don't know, did we go to national park?
Like we did, but we didn't do junior ranger stuff. We just kind of drove through and...
Yeah, we didn't go to a national park to go to a national park. We would drive by a place and be like, oh, we should go check that out.
Yeah.
You know, at the beginning, it was more like, let's go to New Mexico and eat some...
It's about eating.
eat some Ortega chili burgers or something.
Yeah.
But, you know, eventually, well, actually 5 years into it, we had already full-time for a long time, and then Ava was going into kindergarten, and we actually thought, oh, maybe we're done traveling. Let's stop. But, you know, that's because we didn't commit to homeschool. And it was kind of scary. We're not educators by trade, so we don't really know what we're getting ourselves into. And
we didn't know any people when we started. It was just us and a bunch of retired people. There was hardly any families on the road. So it's not like we met a lot of homeschool, road school families to get a feel for what this was all about. It wasn't available to us. It wasn't, social media was new. There weren't a lot of families on the road. It was just, we just thought we had to maybe stop because we didn't know.
Well, there were probably websites already where people were sharing this information, but it wasn't this easy. You know, it wasn't like interactive. Like you can just ask a question and instantly somebody will respond. You can just, you know, have a group of people that, you know, there were forums, but I think things were just different then. The first family we met was Rich and Eleanor Lohr. If you guys know Rich and Eleanor, Rich is the editor, founder of Airstream Life magazine, and he also organizes all of those Aluma Airstream events, rallies. He used to do, I don't even know how many they do anymore, but I know they definitely do Aluma Fandango at the Airstream factory in Ohio. But our first cross-country trip, so we travel sort of regionally for about a year and a half before we decided to go, you know, cross-country. So on our way to the East Coast, we stopped in Tucson again. We actually ended up going to Tucson almost at least, you know, every year, if not every other year.
We're from Southern California, so that's just a natural...
It's a cool place to go. But that's where they ended up. They full-timed for a few years, and they ended up settling there. They're from Vermont originally. So we thought, hey, you know, let's go talk to a family who's done this and kind of, you know, see what they can help us with. So we met them, and then at the same time, they connected us with this other family, which Claire and Daniel, the Springs, from Daniel's from the UK, from London, and Claire is an American from New York who moved there and married Daniel, and then they had 2 girls, and she was on her, what do they call that?
It's like a maternity leave.
Yeah, like a gap year.
Yeah.
They can do like a gap year holiday, as they say here in Europe. So she, you know, her employer is obligated to keep her job available when she's done. So they flew to the U.S., got in touch with Rich, and they happened to be in Tucson at the same time. So they had done a few months already on the road in a vintage Airstream that they bought, and they were going to send it back. So that was like our first time meeting another family with kids, and I think that really helped to know that, you know, the kids don't have to be lonely. They can find other kids, and nowadays it's much easier to meet up with other families. So 5 years in, we thought we would stop. But then what sort of changed all that was we're back in our hometown for the winter, and we started just kind of casually looking into homeschooling, and got Google search and came across this open house that they were holding at the it's part of our county school district. They have a charter school that has a homeschool sort of charter. and they were holding an open house for families that are interested in homeschooling. So we just went just to see, hey, look, maybe we don't have to stop. Let's go check it out. We may not do it, but, it couldn't hurt to find out what it's about. So that's kind of how we got into the whole homeschooling thing, is through that little open house thing. We found out that this was a public school program that the Ventura County School District had, and maybe still has. We're not part of it anymore. The kids, it was just Ava at the time. She gets a teacher assigned to her, and they provide us up to $500 a year worth of school supplies. Mm-hmm. And every 20 school days, she does a Skype session with her and us to kind of check her progress, see how she's doing, and more importantly, kind of give us some ideas of things that we can do, tips and tricks, and making sure that everything's still on the up and up as far as, how we're doing progress-wise with the kids. So that was really helpful. We probably would not have felt like that we could do this ourselves without at least that type of hand-holding at the beginning. So we did that for a couple of years. For various reasons, we ended up pulling out of that program and kind of doing our own homeschool. The two primary ones being that the teacher that we really liked at the beginning. And she ended up leaving that school and going to work at another school. And then the teacher that we were reassigned to just, brought in a lot of bureaucratic stuff. Like, instead of just having us take photos of her work and then emailing it to her, she wanted us to send physical copies of her work, which difficult for traveling. And, instead of being able to be flexible and do things online, it just required a lot of logistics that were incompatible with us. Other kids, I'm sure, in the program didn't have, the similar problem, because a lot of the people there actually were local and they just chose to homeschool. And, the nice thing about that program, one of the things that we didn't get to take advantage of as much, was that like 2 days a week, they actually have a campus, and you can bring your kids to a full day classroom session and just drop them off, and they can do like a regular school thing. So, it wasn't as big a problem for the people that were in town, part of this program, but it was difficult for us.
After a while, they required that state testing. That's not required in California, but for them to get the funding that they wanted, required us to come in to take those tests every May, which is really hard for our travel schedule, because once May hits, we try to be as far north as we can, enjoy the northern part of the country or the world at the beginning of summer.
Yeah, usually when we're in the U.S., our schedule, with the exception of 1 year where we spent the holidays on the East Coast, every other year, so, 9 of those 10 years, or I guess 8 of those 9 years, we came back to Southern California between Halloween and Ava's birthday, which, like we said, is about 2 weeks from now, second week of January. And then after that, after Ava's birthday, we usually pack up and head back out, because we sort of fulfilled all of our obligations. Ava had her birthday party with friends, and, we can kind of go to places where, in southern Arizona, where it's not quite as cold, and as temperature warms up, we start to head north. But May is like smack dab in the middle of our way out. So that wasn't compatible for us. But it really was just more about state funding. Right. All the things that kind of drove us away from that program was about state funding. So in California, what we did is we fill out an affidavit, sign it, and submit it to declare ourselves a homeschool.
A private
school. So we are legally, officially a private school that have 3 students and 2 teachers.
In our own name.
Right. It's a little bit tricky because we're technically teachers as well, and the kids are students. we qualify for educational discount on software and, different purchases, but we don't have like ID cards. And I know there's websites out there and there are people that will make you make homeschool teachers and students like legitimate looking ID cards. So, so you can take advantage of those benefits. But it's always been kind of difficult for us. Like Barnes & Noble has a plan where you can get like a teacher's discount, or Container Store has a teacher's discount, and
right.
all these different things. Like we have our
Adobe.
All right, our Creative Cloud Adobe account is a educational account, but all of that is difficult to prove because we're self-declared. So but we were always able to kind of manage. We can show them the affidavit that we signed.
Right.
Once you get one company or one organization to approve you, they'll give you some kind of document saying that you're approved, and you can then from that point on use that document to also support your homeschool status.
Right.
So that helps. And of course, since we travel, a lot of our schooling revolves around things that we do on the road. But we also do a lot of sort of book-based work as well. So, and I'll let Marlene kind of expand on all the different aspects of that. So since she's pretty much in charge of like going out and acquiring the different materials that we use.
So our homeschooling, we don't label ourselves. We're not unschoolers. We're not classical homeschoolers. We just kind of do a little bit of everything.
It's our own version.
It's our own version. So what we do is we use books, we use apps, we use libraries, we use different passes we get, and a lot of it is determined by where we are.
Yeah, so you can say that there's, probably what we do is what a lot of people who travel in homeschool do, actually. So I wouldn't say necessarily that we're like novel or innovative in those ways,
but we don't
because
have
a lot
label.
of people do this, and I want to say, and I understand these different labels. There's like principles and theories behind it, and there's some very smart people that have come up with these different programs that work for one reason or another. What we do, none of those programs really fit in from our perspective, anyways. So we cherry pick the things that we like.
Right.
And as long as our kids are progressing and they have, showing the right types of progress that we expect, we'll continue going that way. Yeah. And, because the unschooling concept is really more about just like letting your kid kind of figure out what they're interested in and let that kind of drive what they learn. So, yeah, we do some of that.
Right.
Whatever other kind of homeschooling workbooks and road schooling, whatever people say, like we do a little bit of all of that. Whatever makes sense to us is what we do.
And it changes year by year by their age and their interests and how they're progressing or not progressing. We change it up every year.
Right, because the dynamic changes because we have 3 kids. We start out with a kindergartner and Mila, just, not, well, actually, by the time we were homeschooling Ava, we already had Luca too. Mm-hmm. So at the beginning, it was just one kid, and the other kids were little. And then after a couple of years, it was a 3rd grader or a 2nd grader and a kindergartner. And then now it's...
And a wild 3rd kid throwing markers at us.
Yeah. And now it's a 5th grader, a 3rd grader, and a 1st grader.
Right.
So every year the dynamic changes, and because every kid is different, even if you have the same kids, same age, same gender, same type of lifestyle, like your experience can be totally different as well. So, the thing that I think, the biggest thing that I see with this kind of situation when you have 3 kids, different ages, is, trying to figure out like what they're supposed to do for their grade level is difficult. I mean, we haven't, through the workbooks and through various research that we do, we know what they're supposed to do. But the younger kids want to learn what the older kids are doing. and they naturally want to be competitive, so trying to wrangle that is kind of tricky, because with our 3 kids, every kid is good at something. They have their strength and their weaknesses, and trying to manage those, to make sure that everybody feels confident, feels like they're accomplishing something, like that they're able to help each other out. Those are the different dynamics you have to manage.
So for our homeschool, we buy books, workbooks, and that's how, like Dan said, is we keep track of where they're supposed to be. I buy language arts workbooks. I buy math workbooks. Depending on the year, we do science and history workbooks as well. And like Dan said before, we applied for a Barnes & Noble discount, which gives me a 20% discount on any material I buy.
As long as Barnes & Noble's in business.
Yeah, we're screwed if they go out of business. So that's a great resource for us, and that's just what I use. With the kids every year, we decide on the type of books.
And then nowadays it's apps too on their devices.
Right, but like physical books we have in our van is workbooks. I carry around an atlas for reference. They carry around their favorite books, which these days are comic books, for physical books. And they have a lot of different journals, writing journals, memory journals, or just art journals. And we don't have a lot of space, so I have to really think about what we decide to have for physical books. And those are the type of books that we carry around. And from there, they all have their own phone or tablet, which has their own apps on it. And a big one that we use is Khan Academy. We use that for math. They divide it by different grade level, and that helps us stay on track and have quizzes and tests and make sure they're progressing as they should be for their grade level. And also for Luca for reading, he is using something called Reading Eggs, which has really helped him. He's having a little bit more trouble with letters versus the girls. He's a lot better in math, and he's struggling a little bit with letters, so I got him this app that we do daily, and I think it's really helped him. Yeah,
now he's like, earlier today we were watching Superman 1, the original Richard Donner version, and in the background there was like a TV that had the JVC logo on it. He was like, Juvka. What does Juvka mean? I'm like, Luca, isn't it cool that you can read words, but that's not a real word.
So on top of Reading Eggs, we purchased Reading Eggs. It was like a yearly fee. And we pay
There's a few things that we pay for.
Yeah. So like $40 or something a year. Totally worth it for Luca. And we also pay for Brain Pop, and for a while Brain Pop Junior, where the kids can pick different subjects, and there's a video and different levels of quizzes and games that they can play afterwards to aid in our learning or introduction to something we're about to learn.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that our previous homeschool program might have reimbursed us for, but that was another reason why, because it got too difficult. They tell us what books they're going to bring us or what books they have on order for us. The last year of us being part of the homeschool, like, I think it literally went to like the end of the school year at one time before we even got the books.
So end of the year. So we didn't get our books till December. So we had like 2 months of just...
Yeah, and it was ridiculous. And we're just like, hey, can we just go buy our own books? Like, oh, I don't know. But, so now we're doing our own thing. We're basically telling the state, like, we don't need your funding. We would like it if you can figure out a way to, like, give us the money that you would have given us by having our kids go to a public school, but it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. So we pay out of our own pocket for all this stuff. But do keep track, if you do this, do keep track of all your expenses and receipts, because those can be tax deductible.
And since we have limited space, the library is huge for us. When we're in the U.S., when we travel and Dan has to work, we spend a lot of time in library. There's free Wi-Fi. When Luca's little, there's always like a play area for him, and the girls can use their computers. They can read books for hours at a time. But on top of that, when you have your own library card, you can check out ebooks for free. And that's been one of the hugest things for homeschool for us, is when I figured that part out. And so there's an app called Overdrive, and they have a new one called Libby now, which is, it's the same. I don't know what the difference is.
It's a different interface, but it utilizes the same back end. So it pulls, books from the same library database. It's all digital, so it's, this is all kind of rights management based kind of thing. So it's weird, right? Because you think it's digital. Oh, you can just borrow as many books as you want because there is no physical book to go around. But no, like, they have certain number of licenses for each book. And when a book is checked out, you have to wait for that person to return their book before you can check that book out, which I understand. I mean, this is somebody's intellectual property, and the schools have to pay a license for each one of those, or not the school, the library. But it is really cool. It's not just like, regular books. It's also magazines, and it's also audiobooks.
Right.
So that's really cool. For long drives, you can listen to, if I were you, I would listen to this podcast on long drives, first of all.
Duh.
But when you're done, when you've exhausted our library of podcast episodes.
All 7.
All 7, including this one. Actually, there's that.
A bonus.
Part 2.
Don't talk about that bonus.
Yeah. It's sensitive. But it's a great way to get the kids to read. Like when we're driving across Kansas, I think, we listened to
Little House on the Prairie.
That was a long time ago.
You think about something else?
Yeah, just this
the
last year.
Mockingbird thing?
Yeah, what was that called? You guys know what that book is called. Where the kids, it's kind of savagery. Maybe some of the... Luca's not that into it. And Ava's really into it. Mila's sort of into it, because Mila's sort of into what Ava's into. Okay, we have to look that up. People are screaming at their phones and their computer right now.
We can't hear you. Stop screaming at us. Okay, it doesn't matter. But anyways, we can check out books, and for some reason it goes through our Amazon account, and we check out a Kindle book, and it automatically shows up on the Kindle for us. So everybody has the same Kindle app installed on all our phones, and we can the kids can read the same book. So it's awesome. And on top of that, what we also pay for are certain yearly passes.
The Hunger Games.
Hunger Games. Good job, Dan.
I had to look that up.
So when we're in the U.S., every year we pay for a national parks pass. I think it was $80 a year.
Yeah, it has been $80 a year for a long time. And I don't know if it's still happening, but when Ava was in 4th grade, they started the 4th graders program, which every 4th grader gets an annual pass for their family. So we did that for free. And then when Mila's in 4th grade now? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have it now. We got it a
little early last year because we were going to be here.
Well, we got it like towards the end of the year. So we still technically have her 4th grade pass as she's in 4th grade now.
Right.
But we're not taking advantage of it. But when we go back in a couple years, Luca will be in 4th grade, hopefully, or at least close to it.
If they still have that program, I doubt they're going to still have that program down.
But either way, $80 a year out of pocket, really, really great investment. I'm sure for those of you that travel or those of you that are into the outdoors, you already know about it anyways. But yeah, National Park Pass. Not only does it get you into all the national parks, a lot of places they'll offer discounts too on some things. We've gotten discounts on camping, but you're not supposed to get discount on camping. I think we were in Indiana Dunes once. That campground gave us half off camping when we entered in our National Park Pass code. But I think it's just the senior pass and the golden age pass or something that gives you that now. And either way, yeah. I mean, big national parks like Grand Canyon, Yosemite, and those are $25 a pop. So if you go to 3 of those a year, that pays for it.
Right. And what we do at the national parks is they have a junior ranger program. So you walk up or you go to the visitor center and you ask the rangers there for a junior ranger book, and they will give your child or anybody of any age actually a book to complete based on your age level.
Yeah, there's no upper age limit.
Sometimes there's a lower.
But usually there's a lower one. But, if you really ask, if you get a nice ranger, they'll usually let the little kids have it too. Mostly because, like, when Luca was little, when Mila was little, it's like they don't want to be left out. Like when, if you guys have multiple kids, you know how it is. When one kid gets a thing, a little shiny toy, in this case, it's a shiny gold Junior Ranger badge for working on the workbook. Even though the little kid didn't work, it's still going to cause you to have a bad day when you walk out of there, dragging the kid out crying because he or she didn't get a badge. But a lot of times they'll just give you one. So Luca's got a fair number of badges that he didn't technically earn.
Yeah, he got it because he was cute. There was one ranger for Ava's first badge in Bryce Canyon that refused to give Mila a book, and Mila just cried her eyes out.
Some rangers are going to do that.
So that is a huge thing for our schooling is the junior ranger programs. And we also, not every year, but most years we buy a museum pass, a yearly pass for museums.
By the way, for those of you that don't know, I think there are 60 national parks in the system, but there are over 400 national park units around the U.S. That includes Puerto Rico, all the territories like Guam and Alaska, obviously. So, yeah, there's basically one. Anywhere you are in the U.S., there's probably one within an hour or so drive from you, if not multiple ones.
And there's a cool app called, I think it's Passport of America or Passport something, an app you can install on your phone.
I think it's the official National Parks app. It's not a great user interface.
No, but you can search for what are the national parks around me within 50 miles or 100 miles, and you get an idea of what's around you and if they do have a junior ranger program.
Right.
Some don't.
Right, some don't. We've been to a few that don't, and we've been to a couple, like, they're also adding new ones all the time. So we went to the Cesar Chavez one outside of Tehachapi, California, just like the year it was made into a national monument or national historic site. It was deserted. There was not a parking lot, or there was broken windows in the buildings. We were there way too early for that one. But now they have a program you can go. Another one was, I think, it
was the First State.
First State in Newcastle, Delaware. Yeah, it was. They were converting the state park into a national park, so they didn't have that one either.
But we still went and we still learned. And we have to go back to collect the badge. Right.
And, some place, actually all of them will let you take the book. We've never really done this. Actually, maybe we did it once. If you can't finish the book while you're there, you can mail it in, and then they'll mail you the badge.
Yeah, I think we did it once.
I think we did it at Cape Cod, maybe. Or maybe one of the other ones.
Because some of the workbooks are super simple and they take no time at all. And some national parks...
It requires multiple days.
Multiple days. You have to go to multiple ranger talks and drive around the whole park. And it's like, you cannot do it in a single afternoon. So,
well, I mean, if you're at the park and there's no more programs for the day and they require a program, you got to spend the night and come back the next day and attend a program. Or if they require you to finish out a certain amount of work and you show up at like end of the day when they're about to close and you don't have time to finish it, you can finish it and then you have to come back. But usually we don't do the mail-in thing, mostly because we can't get mail easily. But also we really want to make it count. And we like the experience of being there and getting the badge from the ranger in person and doing the swear-in ceremony and all that. Some of the rangers make it really, really cool for the kids.
So on top of that, we also, most years we buy a yearly museum pass, either for a science museum or children's museum. And the cool thing about that is they have a reciprocal program. So you can visit other museums in their network for free or for half off or whatever the discount is. So it's awesome. Like when we're traveling, the last one we did was in Idaho. So we bought a yearly pass it was like $90 a year. And as we travel around the country, we went to the Santa Barbara one for free. We went to all these different ones. And it really helps with...
Yeah, the science one, I don't know. I think some of the other ones are similar too. Like the museum one, there's some tricky thing you have to get around. Like whichever one you buy, like your home museum, where you buy it from, like you can't use it within a certain mile radius of that location. But if you're outside of the radius, then you can use it in the other ones for free. I guess the idea is that like these other museums, they don't want you to, like, if you live in the area, they want you to buy memberships to all of them.
Right.
So,
we go to the LA area a lot, and there's so many museums there. So it kind of makes sense if you buy one for the main science museum, you don't get, within the 20-mile radius of all the other museums for free.
But for us, it's better if we buy it in,
Idaho,
like Santa Barbara, for example, or Idaho, right? And then you can use all the LA ones for free.
Right. So smarter. Smart move, Dan.
I mean, I don't know if I thought to do that when we did it, but that's what we did. But yeah, I mean, that's all the real hands-on cool things that you can do when you travel, because a lot of the schooling in that kind of realm, it doesn't require that much planning because the opportunity just kind of, they come to you. Or I guess technically we drive to them. But as we're driving through an area, we just kind of look and say, okay, are there any museums around here that we can go to for free? Are there any national parks? And if you just add up the national parks and the museums in the area, it's a busy week, because we could travel through within a couple 100-mile radius in a week. Nowadays, we drive a little longer, obviously. We don't have to worry about, the kids changing diapers or anything like that. But yeah, there are times when we literally can't fit them all in, because we'll go to 2 things a day. And especially when you're in a really populated area like the Northeast, you can't fit all the national parks in. Like when we were just in Washington, D.C., we were worn out. We went to Washington, D.C. like 3 days, I think. We took the train in 3 different occasions, and we were worn out, and we didn't probably go to like half the things that we wanted to go. And the things that we wanted to go were just a fraction of all the things that you could do out there. So big cities, really good opportunities. Harder for camping, harder to... You have to stay at campgrounds usually. So that's why we kind of waited a long time to do Washington, D.C.
It worked out well.
Yeah.
And that covers our homeschool. It's like you said, some weeks we're in a populated place where there's so many museums and things to do and adventures. And I get nervous because we're not doing our workbooks.
Yeah. We can go back to the workbooks for a little bit too, because some of the things that we're finding out, like, unlike a traditional schooling environment where they go to class with, in a good case scenario, like 20 other kids in a classroom for an hour, the teacher can only provide each kid at the maximum their undivided attention for 3 minutes. per kid. Most of the time, it's the teacher standing in front of all the kids, teaching them the stuff. So then it's really up to the kids then to pay attention. Whereas for us, we can give our kids undivided attention for as long as they need to teach them something. But the thing that's tricky is usually in a traditional school environment, the curriculum is set. So it's designed in the way that it fits most kids that age. So it doesn't work for some kids. That's why some kids fall out of the program. They kind of slip through the cracks. But we can kind of cater everything specifically to our kids, but we have no set curriculum. So it's a lot of the times where we're teaching our kids something and then they need to practice, because math, for example, is something that you just can't get out of like repetition. So we don't have like homework assignments set up and ready for them to sit there and do some repetition and really let it sink into their mind. So we'll teach them something and they'll get really good at it while we're doing the teaching, and then we think they got it, and then we'll move on to something else, but then we'll come back to something similar that requires them to remember what they did like a week ago. And because they didn't do the repetition, a lot of the times they'll forget, and we'll have to kind of go back to it. So what we started doing is trying to, again, we're kind of making a lot of hybrid things, with our version of homeschooling, trying to, give them like almost homework, but it's really like they do it while we're, doing school, so they can have that repetition. Like you're trying to teach them how to do long division, you're trying to teach them how to do algebra or, whatever math topic or science topic that they're doing. Give them some repetition so that it sinks in. So that's been something new to us that, we're trying to remember to do each time.
I think that covers homeschool.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much, I don't know if that was succinct or maybe organized in a way that you guys would want to kind of hear us talk about it, but at least I think we laid it all out there for you so that the different things that we do. And they also, a lot of the times, like, we'll know that they need to learn something, and there's these videos online that they watch, like the Brain Pop videos, or these other videos, like the ones that, like the Khan Academy, like math videos. Mm-hmm. It's important sometimes for us to sit with them while they watch it, because unlike a teacher, like when they watch a video, they can't ask the person in the video questions. So it's important for you to be there. If they have a question, or you got to be able to read their face, their reaction. If they look like they're lost, they don't understand, you got to pause it, make them watch it again. So that's really important, because I think a lot of the times you feel like, okay, yeah, let this guy on the video teach them. But then at the same time, you don't want them to be lost. You don't want them to lose interest. And maybe even more importantly, you want to know, like, the method that they're teaching.
Right, because especially with math, the methods are changing.
Yeah.
What is it called? I forgot what it's called. Like the new way to do math.
Common Core.
Yeah, Common Core. So we really have to watch the videos.
So it's not the way that we learned it as kids. So it's important for us to be there to watch the video with them, so that we can understand how the person in the video is teaching, and then we can reinforce those techniques.
Right.
The same techniques that they're trying to teach them. So we don't teach them a different technique that ends up confusing them. So that's important. At the end of the day, just like a traditional school, like I've always said that the difference between a good school and a bad school, most of it has to do with how involved the parents are. And if you compare like a really, really good private school that costs a lot of money, every single one of them that I've seen, because we have friends, my brother, our cousins, our relatives, they talk about, oh yeah, this is such a great school because they require us to do this with them. So, wow, that tells you something, right? Like, just because you homeschool too, like, sure, you're the one doing the teaching, you're engaged, but really try to be as engaged as you can, like be in there with them, So I think that's, if you get nothing else out of it, like that's really the important part is like, just because you're teaching doesn't mean that like, oh, watch this video and then do this workbook and then we're done for the day. That I think, that's coming from experience too. That usually, sometimes it could work out, but usually it ends up going down, the wrong path. And then you have to end up redoing some of this work later on because they didn't really get it the first time.
We didn't, and on top of that, we also like art time and PE time. Yeah. We also sprinkle that in also. During the day, it's just like hanging out, doing that stuff normally together, and that's what we...
Yeah, our kids, so far, they've not expressed a ton of interest in, like, team activities. Ava recently has said, oh, I really like volleyball, so we bought a volleyball. We've been trying to make some time. Right now it's kind of cold and windy in Europe, but we brought a volleyball with us, and in a van, volleyball takes up a lot of space, so you got to dedicate space to it. But we've not, like, they're not into ballet, they're not into soccer, basketball, or any other kind of team sports yet. But maybe they will be. At the same time, like, we know our way of life, the way that we live and the way that we travel now isn't going to be the same forever. So we're totally open. And we've always said, like, if they want it, if it was important to them to join a team and be somewhere for a long period of time, we will. Ultimately, we're really doing this for them anyways.
And that kind of transitions into why we chose to live on the road with kids. And the number one thing that we realized is we want to be together as a family, together to have this, the kids grow a sibling bond that's really strong, and as a couple too, to be stronger and spend our days together. We actually enjoy our time together.
Yeah, and a lot of people that I don't know if they are, this in real life, but at least on social media, you look at people that talk about, oh yeah, my kids are home this whole week, man, they're driving me crazy, or I can't wait until we can't have babysitters and we get away from them. Like, we'll get from time to time to that point too. Like when we're usually in the holidays, like we'll have Marlene's parents watch the kids and then we'll go out and have a drink one night. But it's not like when we're with them that we wish that they were being taken care of by somebody else all the time. Like, we actually want to be with them, and I think it's just what they're used to also. And the fact that we're all used to being together all the time and have each other to kind of depend on, have each other to lean on, and have each other to keep company, has created a different kind of bond between us as family. And, we don't feel like that, we're getting on each other's nerves. We don't feel like that, oh man, I wish I could have my own room. I can go in there and lock it. So, I think that's just a different way that we wanted to raise our kids, so that when they are older as adults, hopefully they can have this same kind of bond.
And people look at our lives a lot on how maybe inconsistent it looks like. We're always in a new place. We're always going to a new grocery store. We're always at a new playground. We're always doing these new experiences, which are
meeting new people, playing with new kids.
Right. And it's very inconsistent. But the thing that is always consistent in these kids' lives and in our lives is we're always together. We're the consistent part of our day. We know... The kids know where you are. Like when you had to go to work a couple days every once in a while, really
throws us off.
Drew us off, and it was hard for us. And when we're all together, the kids know mommy and daddy are here. We know where the kids are and everything else. It's okay if everything else is changing around us because this is where we are.
Yeah, it's, the thing that people don't like about moving from one place to another is it's the fear of the unknown. You don't know if you're moving from one city to another, like, what's the school going to be like? What are the people going to be like? When we go from one place to another, we are used to, finding out the unknown. And that's actually the fun part for us. Like, what's it like living here in Croatia for these last 3 months? And if you guys want to know, I have a blog post on mollymish.com/blog. You can read about it.
Are you promoting yourself on our own
You can
thing?
also check out our YouTube channel. I have a day in the life of Split. But that's just an example. Like, that's the fun stuff for us, and that's the thing that the kids look forward to. Hey, let's go check out. There's a cool playground in the neighborhood. Can we go find a place where we can go ice skating in the winter? Can we go find a rec center where there's this indoor swimming pool and water slide? Like, what does it have? Those are all the new things that I think maybe a lot of people are not fearful per se, but at least uncertain about. Those are the fun things for us, and like Marlene said, like, there's definite consistency. Right? We're always there to help them out. So they're okay with going to a new place, meeting new people. And they don't have to be afraid that, like, we're going to be gone. We're not going to be there. Like, we're always going to be there.
That's a huge thing for raising children that are not scared of change, that are okay. They can process being uncomfortable. They can handle that.
Yeah, and it can take them a little bit of time to adjust, especially since we're doing the international travel. Luca's still saying gracias and hola to people here in Croatia. But, I think it's starting to click that it's a different foreign country.
Yeah.
But when we go to Spain, he's going to be really confused because he's going to use Croatian and speak to people in Spain. Maybe we should go to Spain sooner than later.
Maybe. And with traveling, like with international, I love that, one of the things we can teach our children is tolerance. Like, not everybody looks the same as us. Not everybody eats the same thing. Nobody speaks the same language or dresses the same. We can, especially now that we're in Europe and kind of expanding.
Well, really very few people look like them anyways. More and more every day, but,
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean. Yeah, for sure. I think, I'm not going to get political or anything, but one of the bigger problems with society today is that the tolerance that people have, the fear of the unknown. Once again, like, well, that person looks different. Why is that person? What's that person doing in our neighborhood? That person doesn't look like they can afford an apartment in this building. Let's confront them. Like, no, that's not what you want to teach your kids. You want to teach your kids that, be curious, be nice to people, be helpful, and make friends. Everybody lives their life differently, and it'll usually make you grow, help you grow, if you can find out a little bit more about them. And likewise, have them find out a little bit more about yourself.
Right. Living small. Also, I like that we get to teach the kids to live with less. They have to really think about what they're going to pack, especially when we downsized again to the van. We have less space than when we had the Airstream or the four-wheel camper and the Casita combo. They have to really think about what's their favorite toys. What do I really need? What is maybe I need, and what I can give away. And to continually think about that and be conscious of what you own and what you want to buy, I think is good for, once they grow up to be adults.
Yeah, they don't really have a bunch of toys that they never play with. They play with everything. Everything that they have with them are, in theory, are their favorite things. So if they don't have it, when we're in the U.S. each year, even when we travel, inevitably you end up buying things, you collect, and we end up a little heavier than we started at the beginning of the year. So at the end of the year, we kind of go through a little bit of spring cleaning, and we get rid of toys that they don't want anymore, things that they grew out of. We donate. It's surprising how much stuff we get rid of each year, even though we haven't lived in a house for this many years. So they're okay with that, But we also buy them things like here. We just had Christmas here in Split, Croatia, and in Croatia, like gift giving for Christmas is not nearly as big a thing as the U.S. In the U.S., it's like, you get one big gift and you get like 3 little gifts. But here it's like, you get like one small gift and that's it. But, for us, like they still got to get their Santa gift. And I don't think they're used to it because, they wrote their letter to Santa and we took it to the post office. And the lady at the post office was like, what do I do with this?
Is this international shipping or
It's got to go to the North Pole. So they ultimately figured it out. But yeah, it's the culture is different. But they got what they wanted.
Yeah, Ava got rollerblades.
Yeah.
Mila got a yoga Barbie, and Luca got a Nerf shooter thing.
Yeah, Nerf blaster.
Blaster.
Right, with extra blaster bits.
It didn't sound so good. Blaster bits.
No, it didn't sound that good.
Okay.
But that's what they are. Yeah, and I don't know where we're gonna fit the rollerblades, so we'll probably have to get rid of something.
Or trip over them for a while.
Yeah, or she has to wear them she has to wear them full time as shoes.
She'll get really good at them that way. And another reason why we live small is it forces us to go outdoors.
Yeah.
More than if we're comfortable in a house like we're here at Split, we're inside a lot more than if we were living in our home on wheels, whichever home it was. And
even now, like we make ourselves go outside. We're on the 6th floor in a building, and with nice views outside, we can open windows. There's a balcony. We can look out and see the sea and nice views. But it's not the same. Like every day we need to go out there and walk around a bit. So now these last few days since we came back, we had been staying in on the island of Far in Marlene's dad's village where he grew up. And we had our van there because it was easier to park out there. There's more open space. But because we're getting ready to head south, leave Croatia, we brought the van back from the village into the city. So my excuse now is like, hey, let's go check on the van because it's on the side of the road. Let's make sure nobody's bumped into it or, vandalized it or anything. I mean, it's actually really safe here. Like I feel much better about people not breaking in, even than in LA.
Right, for sure. That covers my list, Dan.
That's your list.
We went through it.
We got through the list. We didn't have to edit anything.
No.
Maybe we will. I don't want to get in the habit of editing these.
You said if I didn't know what to say, I could pause, and you...
Yeah, you can pause. Yeah.
But pausing is still cutting sound out, just like me talking.
If we have dead air, then we have dead air. Right?
FCC will not approve this podcast.
Well, we haven't said any bad words. A dead air. FCC doesn't care about dead air. FCC doesn't care about European podcasts, which I don't know if we technically qualify as an American podcast or not. But yeah, I mean, the whole point about this podcast is that we can get really long form about a topic. We can spend an hour talk about our kids, what they do, It would be really difficult. And I think more than anything else is that it takes much more planning than just kind of, get on these microphones and just explain in a long form conversation how we do things, right? Because I think even when you are really meticulous in writing an outline and recording a voiceover and getting graphics and make like a 20-minute YouTube video, get very succinct and go into a lot of detail in 20 minutes, there's still a little nuance that you miss. You know, when we have these conversations about these topics, people will pick up nuance of, oh, if they do this, then they must also do that kind of thing. Like, you know, so I think for those people that really want to know how this kind of lifestyle is like, I think these are better, assuming they have the time. You know, I mean, it's an hour is a long time to dedicate to listening to a couple of strangers talk. But well, the last episode was 2 hours, so whoever listened to that, thank you for that.
Gold star.
And I hope they helped you. You know, just like I hope that this episode has helped some of you. Katie specifically, who asked the question originally on Twitter.
Right.
And again, if you guys have other topics you'd like us to cover, go ahead and head over to Twitter, ask the question, or just, shoot us any kind of comments you have and tag it, #Mish Podcast. And also, for those of you that have been listening, and if you're enjoying our podcast, we would really appreciate it if you go to whatever podcasting directory you're using and give us a 5-star rating. And I think specifically the real popular one, I think still iTunes. People use iTunes. And if you can go write a positive review there for us, we would really appreciate it. And I think if we start getting some reviews on these podcast directories, we'll check them and then we'll read them here on the future episodes.
I think we actually got one, Dan.
We did.
Did you read it?
No, I didn't read it.
Okay, well then
was it good?
It was good.
Okay,
oh no,
good.
Are you scared?
I'm a little scared.
We got our first 5-star
review
by C. Hannah Brown. On December 10th, she wrote, "Great podcast. Enjoyed following you on YouTube and enjoyed hearing the backstory of your travels. Not a traveler, but somebody enjoying hearing about yours."
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
That came, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't even know that was there. I just checked the other day. But I guess that's because I don't have my iPhone anymore.
Wah, wah. Oh, where's your little sound effects?
Yeah, my sound effects. I also have, I got some cables and wires so I can do sound effects like this.
No iPhone, Dan.
And then, for C. Hannah Brown, what do I have for you? Let's see. Is that good?
No.
I don't know. Well, thank you, C. Hannah Brown. That's awesome. We appreciate that. And, so if anybody else want to go give us a 5-star rating, that'll be awesome. And if you're not so thrilled about this podcast, or if you have any things that you'd like us to improve, go ahead and let us know, but don't review. If it's not a 5-star review...
Private message, please.
Yeah, just send us a private message. Let us know how we can improve. We want to know how we can improve, obviously, but we would like to keep that 5-star rating, if at all possible, so we appreciate that a lot. And I don't think we have a topic for the next episode yet. That'll be episode 8. But there's lots of things we can talk about. And, we have basically a list of all the topics, and we'll just have to pick one. We'll try to find one that kind of naturally fits into, this kind of stream of conversations we've been having in these podcast episodes. Once again, I want to thank you guys for subscribing and listening and continuing to follow us. I think... Man, the next episode is going to be different. Next episode, we're going to be potentially recording it in the van.
Ooh, that's going to be...
Yeah, because we've been doing these 7 episodes since we've been in Europe. And because, we're in Croatia this whole time, or mostly, except for the first 2 weeks, we've been in Croatia. So all except for
I think the first one
2 episodes
we did before we flew on the airplane.
Oh, yeah. First one we did in the hotel room in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second one we did in the hotel room.
We did it in Belgium.
Well, we did the second one in Belgium, right. So, yeah, the last 5 episodes, we've done them from Croatia. So the next one will once again be recorded on the road. Awesome. So that'll be exciting. hopefully, fingers crossed, right? Because for those of you that have been following, we're here because we're waiting for our residency cards to get here. We officially have everything approved, and they told us after the first of the year, come in to the office, and they should be here. So we're going to go. We're going to go on the 2nd, see if it's there. If it's not, we're going to go on the 3rd, and then we're going to go on the 4th.
We're going to be super annoying.
We're going to go every day until we get those cards in our hands.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully there'll be, there actually might be another episode recorded here before we leave then. So, but anyways, long story short, we appreciate you guys for listening, and look for more content to come.
Yeah, thanks for following along.
We'll see you guys or talk to you guys in the next one.
Bye.